Okay. Hello. Okay, so we're back for more video. We're doing this in the bedroom. We're gonna try and see if it's a little quieter, not as much background noise. Um, let's see. Whatever. Okay. So, I was gonna do like a themed episode of like about mental health or about my diagnoses, and we might do something like that similar, but I kind of just want to do a hodgepodge of questions. So I want to remind you, you can ask us questions in the comments, or if you have a question that you don't want to ask publicly, you can email us at Rivka and Eduardo at outlook.com. I'll put that in the comments or in the description down below. Um, and yeah, so please ask us questions and we will answer them if we feel comfortable doing so. Otherwise, we will continue coming up with our own questions. So, uh, let's see. Um, how do you think I have been handling my diagnoses and my prognosis emotionally?
I'd say you're handling them as well as anyone can be, given your circumstances. I mean, you definitely, you obviously you don't respond to them gleefully, but you're already in a very dark place once you're receiving them. You're quite often not really eating or in a generally good state when you're receiving the news of your further deterioration. It's like going about like when you had your one doctor explaining to you that your body was basically failing at an accelerated rate that was beyond what was anticipated because you were stressing over dying. When you were first explaining it to me, that was more or less kind of their literal words that you're dying faster because you're anxious about dying.
Yeah, basically.
And I can't imagine how you can explain to someone about not being, worried about an impending death, especially if the clock is ticking any faster.
I think though that I have, except for last week, I think that I have like stabilized a little bit. Like I feel calm. I feel fine, and I don't know. Like things feel okay for once for right now. So, and I think I have those peaks and valleys of that where like I'll be I'll be feeling good and feeling fine and nothing will be flared up, and then something will flare up and it'll trigger something else, and then like my mental health will decline and I'll get depressed or anxious because I'm feeling like shit. And yeah, so I but right now I feel good and I feel stable. So I think you've been handling it as well as can be. I feel like just this past month, it's kind of started to hit you. Like it's really kind of started to become real to you that I'm gonna die. Like it's tertiary, like it's been like this distant thought for the entirety of our relationship, but just this past month had you as it come to the forefront of your mind, I think. Because I feel like I noticed you mentally processing it more. And
was
Yeah.
expecting it to actually be much more imminent, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we
Recently,
have
it's actually been a more of a relief because I feel that it has been pushed back to with
Yeah.
further like not imminently within this year.
yeah.
Has allowed me to really think the
I-
whole thing through a lot more clearly. Like, okay, Michelle's got the final will and testament completed. You're not going to get
Right.
that paperwork from you. You're not going to get that estate open and all that instead of just rushing the whole thing at coming immediately.
Yeah. Chiquita, come here. We oh, we yeah, and I forgot what I was gonna say. So we're gonna move on. Da, da, da. What would you? What do you think would? Oopsies! There you go, baby.
Oh,
Chiquita, you're fine. You're fine.
Hey, girl.
Chiquita's the star of the show again. Sorry. Anyways, how do you feel like you've been coping with everything?
Honestly, not well, but better than anyone else would be in my situation.
What? How could? Do you feel like you could be coping better or like differently, or is there a way you could be coping better?
I just try to stick to my routines as well as I can with housekeeping and making sure that you're eating, make sure that you're cleaning yourself up, and all that. It's sometimes you and or myself just feel crummy, and that's just it.
Yeah. What? What's the hardest thing you've experienced so far with regard to my being disabled and terminally ill?
One of the hardest things about it is knowing that I'll be approaching everything ultimately as a head of household. Knowing that over time I'm having to develop more autonomous decision making for us both. Eventually once that power of attorney and everything I know activates, knowing that you'll eventually reach to a decline. You're still very sharp, but you'll eventually reach a decline where I'll have to handle a resource allocation, all of the financial decisions. Because I'm sure you'll reach a point in which you won't be able to remember quite everything. You'll have to keep track of the checklists that you used to have for yourself. I'll have to teach myself them and become more intimate with everything that you're doing, like your doctor's appointments and all of that.
Yeah. Which I can't imagine because that's like a full-time job. I mean, honestly, it is a full-time job. And I think that for me, my answer to that question would be like the bureaucratic BS that you have to jump through, like all of the, like how difficult it is to get disability, and once you do get it, like how difficult it is to keep it, and like how hard it is to access the resources and get the care that you need, and it's just, it shouldn't be as much. Like, I feel like I fight every day to just access the basic resources I need to live, and it shouldn't be that way.
Keeping yourself alive really is an occupation in and of itself. The time that you put into it just every day, like that really is a job.
Yeah. What's something you wish, now that you have been living this life for a year and a half with someone who is disabled and terminally ill, and or terminally ill. What what's something you wish more people knew or understood about disability or terminal illness that you necessarily didn't know or understand until you experienced it? What's a misconception or something that you wish people know that they don't seem to know or understand?
Terminal illness or disability to any extent, be it like a temporary, full disability or partial, permanent, etc. It's not always visible. It's not always.
So that would be the cats. I already know what that sound was. So
That's the kitties.
Sorry, go on.
It's not always.
Oh, that's it.
It's not always a prosthesis. It's not always someone walking about with a cane or a walker. Necessarily, someone with some kind of augment or a prosthetic.
Right.
Rivka here has only recently had to walk about with, let's say, like orthopedic shoes or with a stroller of her own. But you can tell looking at walkers. I don't want to confuse the two because you're not a baby.
Exactly.
You're not, you
don't infantilize me.
Don't get into it.
Don't infantilize me.
Put you in and walk you around. I like to take care of
Fran. Weirdo. But yeah.
A rippy baby. This is kind of a number.
Record. I can see the little red light in the TV. Okay, so we were freaking out because Eduardo was talking to me as if I were a baby, but whatever. Let's see, what else? So I think the same, for me, the big same thing is, and I think the other thing too is, one thing that I wish people knew or understood about disability or chronic illness or terminal illness is that everybody's different. Like, no, just because one person, just because there's no one size fits all for disability, and there's no one in how it looks or represents or presents, and that's true of chronic illness and terminal illness too. And terminal illness isn't necessarily. We need to get away from the image in our head of what people tend to conjure up of terminal illness, and that immediately tends to jump to like cancer. And you can be terminally ill and look perfectly healthy and fine, and so I think that's probably the biggest, or the one thing that I wish people understood too, is that it's not very always obvious, and it's not always permanent too. Just because someone's in a wheelchair doesn't mean that they're permanently in that wheelchair. Like I would or could benefit if I were to be able to safely leave the home. If it weren't a pandemic, I would probably benefit from the use of a wheelchair in a large store like, Target or Costco or something like that. But there's always memes and things that go around Facebook and the internet and stuff that I see that are like, that show a person who's using a wheelchair standing to reach for something, and they're like, praise God, they're healed or something like that, mocking the person who's in a wheelchair. Just because a person uses a mobility aid does not mean that they need to use it all the time, 24/7. And you don't know that person's situation, and you don't know that person's both history and physical ability, so it's not your place to judge them on that. That's just really a big gripe of mine. Sorry, I got off my soapbox. Um, what's the scariest moment so far that you've experienced with me being sick?
I think it was the one time this past spring, I'd say in April, that day that you were really, really out of it. You could barely move or breathe. I had to get you to the hospital. I had to skip work that day.
Yeah.
Well, that's when they still allow visitations and everything to hospitals.
That's right. Uh,
Your fluid levels and everything were just shot.
yeah. Was that the time that the
It was bad. Your pulse ox was like nothing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I remember that, and my doctor was like, "Why aren't you at the ER?" And it was just, yeah. I'm very, very, very stubborn when it comes to like seeking medical attention, because like I feel like I know my body very well, and obviously, and yeah, sometimes to my detriment. But anyways, enough about me not being a good patient. Uh, yeah, that was kind of scary because that was this year, so it was COVID, and like, it wasn't COVID, that it was like they had to dress up in their big, bulky suits. And it was scary, and I didn't have him or someone with me
yeah,
to help.
the guys picking you up were in hazmat.
Yeah, and I need with my neurological disorder, I have a hard time. I have speech impediments with my neurological disorder, and so that can be exacerbated with stress, and obviously it helps me to have someone to help translate or fill in the gaps of my speech, but that wasn't allowed because of COVID, and that was very scary and stressful. I would like to not deal with that again. Uh, but yeah, let's see here. So, what's your favorite thing to do together as a couple?
Jeez. Our favorite things to do, honestly, is like just sleeping in. Honestly, just cuddling.
Sleeping in.
Just cuddling a whole morning away.
Me three.
That really is that's my favorite thing.
I concur with that.
Sometimes cuddling, having a big old tub of popcorn and watching an old movie or something, but cuddling, sleeping, sleepy cuddling.
I concur with that. I like that. Or I like playing games together too, or like having like you play video games on the Xbox and I'll be on my computer or something, like, and us just talking and playing at the same time and stuff. I think that's fun. But what makes you happy for me?
Seeing you content or appearing comfortable or happy makes me happy for you. Anytime I see that you're able to enjoy food, comfortably, walk, to and from the kitchen, making Frenchy toast or
Makes a lot of French toast. Mostly because of him. He likes French toast.
But you like it even more, though.
I like it a little less than you, but I can tolerate it because you like it so much.
Really,
I am indifferent to my syrup bearing breakfast foods, pancakes, waffles, French toast. I have no preference.
just tons of just syrup in there, all of it though.
It's all about the syrup. The waffle, pancake, whatever is just a vehicle to consume the syrup. In my opinion. What makes you happy about us? Or what about us makes you happy?
Most recently is our talks about our commitment ceremony,
Yeah.
and talking about doing that at some point post pandemic.
Yeah, I really didn't peg you as one to be excited about that. Like, I know you're indifferent to the details, and it's really not going to be. There's really not that many details because it's not going to be anything extravagant. But I didn't peg you as like when we met. You just kind of seemed like marriage, and yeah, we're having a commitment ceremony, not a wedding, but basically a wedding without the wedding license or the marriage license. So, like, I didn't really peg you as being excited about that, but I'm very excited that you're excited, and I'm excited.
That's good.
Yeah. What are you excited about it? Or what excites you about it? Or makes you happy about it?
Just that we're kind of proceeding with that. Just planning, just imagining it.
Yeah. You're excited about the actual day and the symbolism of it.
Excited of it being in what I would hope is just a better, different future. That's really most of what I'm looking forward to, is the idea of actually getting together with the family and loved ones, and close up together,
Yeah.
again, for something momentous or nice.
Exactly. Yeah. Think of that.
It's just the idea of having something to celebrate in the future, I guess, is what makes me happy, is the fact that I'm looking forward to anything at all in the future. Because I haven't had much of anything to anticipate or a long time.
Yeah,
Besides maybe my vacation coming up.
I'm excited about that too.
Yeah, that is good.
I'm excited about that.
He is excited too.
Yeah, Chiquita Marie is very excited. Let's see here. If you had one wish for me and you and us, like me and okay. So what would, if you had one wish for me individually and you individually and us together, what would they be?
A wish for us?
Yeah.
It's a really broad and pretty open-ended question. A wish for us, something wanting to wish for, to want.
What's something you want for us?
To live.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Okay. For it not to end. That's fair. Same.
My wants are pretty basic.
To not die.
Yeah,
Early.
That's
Anyways.
yeah. Untimely.
Prematurely.
That's really my day-to-day life is just struggling to
Yeah.
continue living, persisting. That's
I know. You already answered that question. What's the worst? Okay. What's the worst thing about that you have observed or experienced yourself? What's the worst thing that you've observed or experienced yourself about chronic illness, disability, or dying, terminal illness that's not related to my actual disease or body or what
the worst things about it is not related to the actual medical condition. Is just how people regard it and how unsafe you may be if you're ever kind of in trouble. So,
How do you mean?
but one of the reasons I always want to be around it where you are because I want to make sure that you don't accidentally harm yourself if anything happens. Like there was the time that after work, I was taking a nap after I'd clocked out, and you had taken the trash out yourself
I
instead of letting me do that, and you suffered a really bad fall.
Sometimes I'm my own worst enemy. I tend to sometimes think I can do things more than I can. That's probably one of my failings. My personality flaws is that I stubbornly
You're still
and
very
begrudgingly.
stubbornly trying to cling to your independence.
Yeah.
And even if that means sneaking off to do chores while I get shut eye for a second, and then you get yourself hurt because I took my eyes off of you for a moment.
Oops.
That was not good times for either of us. I definitely was not letting you out of my sight for a while.
No, you were not. Although I have to give you credit. So he is very, very protective, and sometimes it's funny, and doesn't end up with me getting hurt. I had to do a heart monitor for 48 hours, and so I couldn't bathe for 2 days, and it was miserable and disgusting by the time the heart monitor came up. And I was so freaking excited about getting to take a bath. This was before I had to stop taking baths, and so I'm in the bathroom, humming along, and all excited and singing a song about bubble baths and being all excited about being in a bubble bath. And you thought I was calling for help or something, or that I'd fallen. And so you come running into the bathroom.
I said you're okay.
It's no, I'm just excited about my bubble bath.
Bubbles. So cute though.
What else? I think my answer to that question, the worst thing about chronic illness or disability or terminal illness is the lack of care and the lack of safety, quote unquote safety nets, or the lack of ability to just survive financially, have financial security and food security and housing security and stuff like that. Like it just that is always a problem. Like, yeah, access to services and access to care is horrible in this country, and I wish it were better, and it should be better, and that's something that until you experience it firsthand or had someone very, very, very close to you experiencing it, you don't know or understand. Um, what? Uh, okay, this is a kind of a quiz question for you. What is spoon theory?
It's the idea of how much, I guess, for lack of better terms, a standard unit of energy that you have to perform a task.
Yes.
Because each spoon being equivalent to a task.
A unit of energy.
Small, yeah. A small chore.
Yeah. I will include a link to a description of what spoon theory is down below. But essentially, what Eduardo said, spoon theory is the theory that one spoon is equivalent to a certain amount of energy, and if you meet all the like benchmarks of you got a good night's sleep, you took your meds, you are healthy, blah 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 blah. You have all the spoons that you would get in a day, and then but for each thing you didn't have, like didn't get a good night's sleep or something like that, you lose 3 spoons. You start the day with 3 less spoons, and certain tasks take a certain amount of spoons. Like showering is a large quantity of energy. Getting out of bed might be a minor amount of energy. That sort of thing.
Small spoons, big spoons.
Teaspoons.
As depending on how exhaustive that chore is, it's the kinds of spoons needed.
Yes.
Or how else you would describe them as if you're wanting to not standardize units of measurement.
Right.
It's interesting stuff.
What have you learned most about disability, terminal illness, and chronic illness by being in a relationship with me that you didn't obviously know about before?
Oh, jeez. I'd say everything I know of, like EDS, POTS, some of your diagnoses are from knowing you.
Yeah. But what about, like, not specific to my medical background? What have you learned about disability, being disabled, or having a terminal illness or something like that you didn't necessarily, or that you didn't know before?
Just learning that it's not always obvious.
Yeah. What do you think the big? We already did that one. We're still okay. What's your favorite thing to do to relax? And what do you think my favorite thing to do to relax is?
My favorite thing to relax, I really have to say, is just it's hard to explain when I feel most relaxed as opposed to what do I do.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'd say it's anything post workout, just climbing back in the back, get it comfortable.
Yeah. What do you think is the most, or what do you think relaxes me?
Anytime you're able to work with your crafts, like doing any of your coloring on a tablet, doing any of your creations, gaming,
Yeah.
reading.
Yeah.
I read voraciously.
I do read voraciously. Um, in a perfect world, what yeah, what makes us a strong team, and what do you think makes what do you think makes our relationship strong and healthy?
It's usual service, trying to look after each other, ensure that each other are okay.
And not just, and I know you mean that not just physically, but emotionally and mentally.
Share and discuss